You are alone in a quiet room. Nothing distracts you, and suddenly an unexpected thought crosses your mind. What if I just disappeared? This is the call of the void, a phenomenon as intriguing as it is disorienting. It comes as a whisper from the abyss, an echo from the depths of our consciousness. But why do these ideas, so contrary to our survival instinct, arise precisely in those moments when we are most connected to ourselves? This impulse, contrary to what it may seem, is not a desire to die. It is a harsh reminder of the vastness of our freedom and the fragility of our existence. It is like standing on the edge of a cliff and realizing with unsettling clarity that nothing but your own decision prevents you from taking a step forward. It is not the desire to fall, but the realization that the power to do so lies entirely in your hands. Psychologists and philosophers have debated this phenomenon for generations. Some believe it is a reflection of our subconscious testing the boundaries of our relationship with life and death. Others, like Albert Camus, see it as an inevitable confrontation with the absurd, the gap between our desire to find meaning and the indifference of the universe. But what if the call of the void is not just a trap of our subconscious? What if it is an opportunity to ask, what do I truly want from life? Take, for example, driving alone at night on a deserted road, the steady hum of the engine, the headlights cutting through the darkness. And then the thought arises, what if I just turned the wheel? This moment does not mean you want to harm yourself, but rather that you are facing an intimate confrontation with your own ability to make decisions. You feel the weight of human existence, the freedom of choice, and at the same time, the immense responsibility it entails. And here we begin to understand that the call of the void is not just a psychological phenomenon. It is a gateway to larger philosophical questions. It forces us to ponder what it means to be alive, to control the situation, and yet to face the unknown. When such thoughts arise, do you ignore them or try to understand what they are trying to tell you? But the void is only the beginning. It opens the door to even deeper questions. And to cope with this, we need to understand how we create meaning in the midst of chaos. This is where the idea of the absurd comes in, which will be the subject of our next topic. Because to challenge the void, we must first understand what we are challenging. If there is one thing that unites us all, it is the search for meaning. We live our lives trying to connect the dots, create stories, and find a reason for every event. But what if life, deep down, has no meaning at all? This is the central question of Albert Camus' philosophy, which describes existence as a constant struggle with the absurd. The absurd is the confrontation between the human desire to find meaning and a universe that remains indifferent, silent, and unresponsive. Camus compared our existence to the myth of Sisyphus, a figure from Greek mythology condemned to push a boulder up a hill, only to watch it roll back down each time. There is no victory, no goal, just an endless cycle. But according to Camus, the beauty of this myth lies in the moment when Sisyphus accepts his condition. In doing so, he finds freedom. As Camus said, we must imagine Sisyphus happy. What does this mean for us, who also carry our daily burdens? It means that the search for objective meaning can be exhausting, but we need not despair. The absurd is not a death sentence, it is an invitation to rebellion. It is a chance to create our own meaning, to challenge the absence of answers by making choices that give value to our existence. If the universe does not give us a purpose, why not create our own? Imagine a simple thing, an artist who creates a piece without knowing if anyone will ever see or appreciate it. For them, the act of creation is a response to the absurd. They paint not because they expect applause, but because it gives their existence meaning. And you? What would you do if you knew that no one would ever see or understand it? Would it still hold value for you? Camus urges us to find joy in the very process of life, even without guarantees. He urges us to see life not as a problem to be solved, but as an experience to be lived. When the void calls, perhaps it is simply asking us, how will you choose to spend your time here? And in answering this question, we may discover that meaning lies precisely in this choice. But there is a question that Camus leaves open. Where does this freedom of choice come from? Is it something inherent in our existence, or is it just another illusion created for our comfort? It is at this point that Kierkegaard enters the discussion, offering a perspective that goes beyond the absurd, focusing on the paradox of freedom and the impact of our choices. And this is where we will now turn. Kierkegaard, one of the fathers of existentialism, believed that freedom is both our greatest gift and our greatest source of suffering. For him, the call of the void is not just a confrontation with the absurd, but also a reflection of the immense weight of freedom. When we face the abyss, we truly feel the enormous responsibility of being free to choose even the end. However, this freedom comes with a paradox. Kierkegaard describes it as the dizziness of freedom. The feeling when you look at all the possibilities and realize that although we can choose any path, each choice excludes all others. At the same time, being free, we are also prisoners of the consequences of our decisions. Thus, the void is like a cruel mirror that forces us to face not only who we are, but also who we could be. Imagine a situation where you stand before an open door, knowing you can enter it at any moment. This door represents all the available options, but it also carries a question. Will you enter? And if you do, will you be ready for what awaits you on the other side? The void, when it calls, is that door. It does not shout, it does not push, it simply exists, offering a choice. But why does this cause us so much suffering? Kierkegaard believed that at its core, the call of the void is a spiritual crisis. It reveals the contradictions between our desire for security and our desire for transcendence. Faced with the idea of absolute freedom, we question not only our choices, but also whether we are truly free or trapped by forces we do not fully understand. What is more frightening? The possibility that everything is predetermined, or the idea that we are in complete control of our destiny. We can see this paradox in simple situations. When someone faces a difficult decision, for example, to leave a stable job to pursue a dream, what matters most? The fear of failure or the freedom to try? Kierkegaard would say that in these moments we experience what he called despair. Not ordinary despair, but existential despair, in which we confront the void and the fundamental question, what should I do with my freedom? For Kierkegaard, the answer lies in what he called the leap of faith. Not a blind leap, but a deep belief that beyond the void there is something that gives meaning to our choices. He urges us to embrace uncertainty and act, even without guarantees. And perhaps this is true freedom, not the absence of fear, but the courage to move forward despite it. But what happens when, having made this leap, we still face pain and suffering? How do we go on living when life seems unbearable? For this, we need to turn to the wisdom of the Stoics, who teach us that sometimes life is the greatest act of courage, and this is what we will discuss next. There are moments when the weight of life seems unbearable. Pain, physical or emotional, presses down on us, and the thought of continuing seems as impossible as climbing an endless mountain. It is in these moments that the courage to simply exist becomes one of the greatest manifestations of human strength. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher, knew this better than anyone. He believed that sometimes simply living is already an act of heroism. Seneca faced pain head-on. In his writings, he spoke of his own struggle with suffering, admitting that there were days when continuing to live seemed impossible. Once, tormented by illness, he contemplated ending his life. But in the darkness, he remembered something greater, the impact his death would have on those who loved him. He realized that, although the pain was unbearable, his decision was not just about him, it was about the impact it would have on the lives of those around him. This is the essence of Stoic courage. It is not just about enduring pain, but about recognizing that our choices resonate beyond ourselves. Imagine a calm lake. When a stone is thrown, the waves spread, reaching places far beyond the initial impact. This is how we make decisions. When we choose to keep moving forward, even in the most difficult times, we create waves that affect those around us. Have you ever thought about how your presence influences the lives of others? How your act of resistance can become a source of strength for others? But Seneca does not suggest that we deny our pain or pretend it does not exist. On the contrary, he urges us to face the truth and find purpose even in the most adverse situations. For him, pain is not the enemy. The real enemy is the refusal to seek meaning and connection even in the face of suffering. Imagine someone battling illness. Every day may be a struggle, but by choosing to fight, that person not only demonstrates courage, but also inspires those around them. Your actions remind others of the value of resilience, the importance of continuing the journey, even when the path seems insurmountable. This Stoic perspective forces us to reconsider our relationship with suffering. Is pain simply something to be avoided, or can it become a catalyst for growth, connection, and even transformation? Seneca teaches us that to live courageously is not to ignore the void, but to accept it and find the strength to continue even when tomorrow is uncertain. And perhaps this is the ultimate answer to the call of the void, not to run from it, but to recognize that it is part of the experience of life. We are defined not only by moments of happiness or success, but also by how we deal with chaos, pain, and fear. By accepting this, we gain not only courage, but also purpose. So as we come to the end of this reflection, an inevitable question arises. What will you do with the call of the void? Will you choose to face it head-on, use it as an opportunity for growth and connection, or will you continue to see it merely as a threat?